gang. I know, it's a bit late, like half an hour late. Porcelain Maid's Kid? I don't think so, because I am not just a doll. There's law reasons for why I'm a doll. I think we're a very different species. But hi chat, I know, I'm half an hour late. I haven't been doing great again today. I'm starting to think it's like a hormone issue. I need to get like blood tests done and stuff, but I need to do some fundraising probably to be able to do the blood tests because of the way I react to them. So I'll probably start working on an event to fundraise for that because it's not cheap. Hopefully I can... Hopefully that will help a bit. But otherwise... Hi! Yeah, I'm late. Woo! I sat in VC with some friends for a while and that boosted my mood a bit, which has helped. But yeah, I'm having a bit of a day. We're pretty down, low energy sort of thingy going on. You were gonna beg Endeavour, but he's playing Repo. He's playing Repo with the gang. Actually, there's a few people playing Repo together. I know Tushy and Prisma and Wicked are playing Repo in the cafe. I don't think they'd mind you joining. And you could bug them while playing, because he was not gonna lie. He's spectating a bit because he keeps dying, so you could probably bug him anyway. But also thank you for the sub, Ruby. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. But yeah, I have some medical stuff I need to get on top of, and it's been getting to me a bit. My inability to deal with things. Oh, holy shit. Ruby! What the fuck? Thank you for helping... for giving me so many gift subs. Oh, they're in the secret chat in the cafe. I could pull you in. I could tell them to pull you in. There's like a secret one. Slacko. Just message Endeavour or actually message Wicket and he can pull you in there. It's kind of a secret one for specific vibes. But holy shit, thank you for the level 2 hype train. What the fuck, bitch? Thank you. I really appreciate it. Like, immensely. It means a lot. Fuck. Thanks. That's a massive gift, yeah. If you guys need, if you guys want to snatch up some hype train emotes, you should go for it. Just throw some bits in the well and you can get them. 100%. Let's go gambling, yeah. The spinnies. The spinnies are very addicting. I get it. They're very addicting. But yeah, we're finally continuing from the very start of my VTubing career. We're finally continuing Salome's Kiss. Crazy that it's taken me this long to get to it. I won't lie, chat. I do get anxious nowadays about playing visual novels, even though I want to be the visual novel girly. Oh fuck, my model's frozen up. Yippee. Yahoo! Let me restart VTube Studio. Gapip Studio's been freezing up a little bit lately. Oh, thank you for the biddies, Ruby. I wasn't talking about you. You already were eligible for the emotes. What the fuck are you doing, babe? Nuts. Nuts, insane. Hype train level 3, let's go. This is where about our record was. We've reached hype train level 3 at a certain point before. But yeah. Oh my god. That's kind of obscene. Anyway, you had them left over, thought why not? I really fucking appreciate it, girl. What the hell? Yeah, this visual novel is quite torturous for our lovely main girlie. Lady! All-time record shattered? Let's go. That's obscene. That's crazy. I love it. Thank you for gifting a sub to Azel. Now he too can do the things. We're having a real good time today, huh? Shit. We were playing a game today, but you guys are already going obscenely wild. Yeah, we were playing a visual novel by my favourite English visual novel dev, Ebihime. It's called Dun 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 Dun, Salome's Kiss. For those who aren't aware of Salome's Kiss, might I recommend might I recommend my VODs channel, which is linked in my abouts. I also have to let everyone know who's tuning in today that my Discord is now open, and I also have a link to that. It should be a permalink in the about. Thank you for the hydrate. I don't have a Discord command, Wolfie. I need to set one up. I don't have those command thingies set up, but it should be a permalink in the about of the actual channel. But yeah, I appreciate you trying to shout me out with the Discord. There you go. Wolfie's on top of things. He's basically a mod at this point. Oh, I forgot to open something. Oh no, I forgot to open Mix It Up. Will it work? Will it work if I open it now? Let's hope. Sorry, I'm opening Mix It Up now. But yes, so I've got the previous VODs for Salome's Kiss on the YouTube VOD channel, which is in the about. I also have the Discord permalink up in the about as well. So if you're curious about what's happened before on this story, I would recommend checking out the VODs and learning about our fucking disaster lesbian. I didn't do a catch up. I don't know where the fuck we left off. So you guys are as blind as me. Yippee. And I'm excited, though. Let's get in it. Oh, these are disaster lesbians in the gothic sense, my dear Wolfie. So it's bad for them. It's bad for them to be disastrous this time. Let us load where we last were. Oh, I forgot. She has monstrous tits. Excellent. That woman needs a better bra. Were bras invented at this point? I know that when corsets covered less of the bosom, bras started to come into fashion, but I don't think bras were a thing yet, so she was tragically unsupported. Okay, so she's talking to the lord of the house. Though Letitia herself could read, reading was in fact one of her favourite pastimes. Ooh, a hype chest. Choo-choo. Choo-choo. Right, Slacker, yeah. This is our tragic, unsupported disaster lesbian, yes. And unfortunately, she is stuck in a very, very gothic story. So we just have to watch her suffer instead of like falling into beautiful woman happily. Aren't you excited? Reading was in fact one of her favourite pastimes. She doubted she would ever be able to plough her way through those heavy volumes. It's Sunday after all. It's a day of rest. I shouldn't overtax myself. Ah yes, he's an academic, babes. So what that means is he reads a lot of stuff. And he gets to do this because he's rich. Arthur laughed at this, though Letitia was not sure why. Perhaps it was a joke, only academics would understand. Arthur's laughter was incomprehensible to Letitia. But it wasn't wholly useless. Letitia felt it certain, at the very least, that Arthur would not try to manhandle or abuse her. There's rumours going around the household, I remembered, that this man forces himself onto the maids. And there is a pregnant maid currently that is sort of the centre of this rumour, as it were. He seemed much too nice for it. I fear it is I who must be monopolising your time. Schooling my Jenny must be hard work. You ought to take this opportunity to relax while you still can, or I fear you'll exhaust yourself. You don't look entirely well, you know. Maybe it's the air. It might disagree with me. Maybe so. The marshes do take some getting used to. I hope you'll come into your element soon enough. Thank you, sir. Taking this as a cue to leave, Letitia turned to depart. Before she could do so, however, her eyes snagged upon something she had not noticed before. It was yet another painting, directly parallel to the one above the mantelpiece, though this one was much smaller. This painting was horizontal, and it depicted 4 individual figures. They seemed to be posing in a parlour, sitting together upon a chaise lounge. A red-headed woman, a fair young man, and 2 children. Given the size of the painting, it was hard to make out the precise details, but Letitia was certain she recognized the 2 adults. The one was the very split of the pretty woman in the painting above the mantelpiece, while the fair-eyed head man with the blue eyes was incredibly similar to the man of letters currently sitting at his desk. It must have been Arthur and his wife, Sylvie, Letitia recalled Genevieve once calling her. The children, meanwhile, made an especially pretty pair. One a boy, one a girl. The girl was obviously older, perhaps 10 or 11, with red curls tied back with a ribbon. She wore a frilled dress, much like her mother's, and she was smiling. As for the boy, he was little more than an infant. He could have only been a handful of years old, and he was cradled in his mother's arms. Seems likely that the girl was Genevieve. But who, then, was the mysterious infant? Genevieve had made no mention of having any siblings. Perhaps this young boy, then, with the inquisitive eyes, was no more. Had he passed away? This realization made Letitia swallow. She looked away from the painting quickly, as though she had committed some grave sin, peering into a gaping wound which had yet to close. What right did she have to pry into the Langleys' private lives? She was nothing more than a governess. She shouldn't have been staring, much less wondering. Arthur, alas, had even sharper eyes than those of his taxidermy birds. He must have caught Letitia looking, because softly he said, "Ah, yes, that is one of my favourite paintings. Isn't it lovely?" Arthur's tone was a wistful one, coloured with reminiscences, and Letitia was unsure if he really wanted her to answer the question. In the end, she decided it best to remain silent. She did not want to say anything ignorantly stupid or hurtful. Even she could see, despite Arthur's best attempts, that his smile was trembling at the edges. His wife had died but a year ago, his infant son potentially many years prior to that. But it was clear that their memories still haunted him. I remember the day I had that painted. It was a gift to Sylvie for our 15th wedding anniversary. I had so wanted it to be special, but it wasn't long after that painting was finished that our son, poor Gareth. Arthur offered no further explanation to the young boy's fate, yet his melancholy tone revealed more than words ever could. If Gareth Langley had still been alive, he would have been 12 or 13 by this point. Arthur Langley might have sent him away to boarding school. But surely there would have been some sign of his continuing existence in Hatton. Ah, Sebby. Good luck out there in the world, my good sir. As it was, there was nothing. Miss Rye had mentioned no young master, and Genevieve had mentioned no little brother. Were it not for this painting, Letitia would never have known a Gareth Langley had ever even existed. This household doesn't really talk about any of their issues, which I suppose is the norm for any household. A few days passed, but Letitia still felt uneasy. Now, whenever she slept, she found herself haunted by the fair-haired child she had seen in Arthur's study. Little Garther Langley, with his blue eyes and blonde curls, had lived for a scant handful of years. He had not even had a chance to grow into himself before he had died, though how he had died exactly remained a mystery. Death rates were particularly high amongst infants. They could be perfectly healthy one day, then sicken and succumb the next. Fevers and whooping coughs were common ailments that inflicted young babes, draining the colour from their cheeks and the breath from their lungs. Letitia had no reason to suspect foul play in young Gareth's death. Not even the children of wealthy landowners were immune to pneumonia. Letitia knew she was being silly, but still, her heart ached for Arthur. Years had passed, but his son's death must have weighed on him. Was it possible to ever properly recover from so deep a wound left by the loss of a loved one? Upon that subject, Letitia was quite ignorant. Letitia found herself becoming distracted in the schoolroom. Each whisper of air against the window panes made her pause and lose focus. Her nerves severely rattled. She could still recall quite clearly what Gerard Lockhart had said on their journey to Hatton. He had told her of St. Osbert's prophetic visions and of all the death he had witnessed, both in Beeston and, in the case of his older brother, out on the moors. Were those ghosts still wandering the marshlands, their faces twisted with agony? Did Gareth wander the earth still? What of his mother, Sylvie? The thought made Letitia shudder. She shuddered so badly, in fact, that Genevieve must have noticed, because she glanced at her governess askance. "Are you all right, Miss Reed? You've been awfully jumpy this morning." "Oh, yes, I'm fine." Letitia tried to sound unconcerned. Those 2 pink spots still appeared on her traitorous pet cheeks. "I think I can feel a cold coming on, that's all." "A cold? Well, that's no good. It's not even winter yet, not properly." "It's an uncommonly pleasant day today, in fact. The sun's still shining at least, and there aren't too many clouds." Genevieve's comments impelled Letitia to turn her head. She glanced out at the undulating marshes, obscured though they were by fronds of ivy. The schoolroom looked out over the Langleys' garden. It was separated from the rest of the moors by a tall brick wall, but the land was fairly flat, and Letitia could see far, far beyond it. The brown-green marshland was choked with tall reeds and swaying bracken. "The bracken?" The bracken. "Someone let Wicked know that his husband is in this game. Someone inform him. Someone let him know that he's in here." Thank you, Slacko. Big preach. Pools of murky water glimmered dimly in the weak autumnal light, their surfaces broken by the brush of the breeze. Under certain lights, the moors looked almost pretty, yet, Letitia reminded herself, they were awfully desolate too. Letitia could not see even the smallest hint of Beeston in the distance. The leaning tower of the local church was lost among the rolling hills, the roof and streets and fences swallowed up by nature's hungry moor. Hatton Manor had never felt more secluded, the rest of society more far away. Though Letitia was with Genevieve standing in the schoolroom, she felt incredibly alone. Was this how young Gareth had felt, when he had succumbed to whatever illness which had ravaged his tiny body? What about his mother? It was little wonder Genevieve was so restless. Wicked! You had me muted? What the fuck? What the fuck? Everyone points and laugh at him. Everyone point and laugh at the man. Boo! Boo! It was little wonder Genevieve was so restless, being entombed in such a place. Does it get very cold in the winter? It snows sometimes, yes. The moors turn white and the lakes will freeze over. It's pretty, but the icy paths can be lethal. Lethal company mentioned? Is Prisma here? It's one of her games. If it hadn't been snowing that day, maybe the physician from Beeston would have arrived in time. And Mother... Genevieve's voice trailed off. She cast her eyes down at her desk and sighed, fingers picking out dents and scuffs in the wood. Hi, Jaws. It's been a very messy stream today, but it's nice to see you. I don't much like the snow in any case, or the cold for that matter. No, I can't imagine that you would. It's freezing inside the house too. It's big and old and it's not very warm. The wind creeps in through cracks in the windows. You can hear it whistling at night when you're trying to sleep. It nips at your toes and not even your covers can save you. You almost make the cold sound like a monster. It is monstrous. Servants will attest to that. We've had some numerous scullery maids struck down with fevers in the past. They all sleep up in the attic, you see. I can't imagine how frigid they must get. It's nice to see you too, Jaws. Yes, that does sound unpleasant. Letitia turned away from the window. She was grateful at least that she had her own bedroom to sleep in, even if it was a touch lonely. Genevieve's little tales had not filled her with much confidence about the oncoming winter. Hatton Manor was isolated enough, but with the advent of the winter snow, it sounded almost impenetrable. Does it snow an awful lot in the winter? Not so very much, no. Not in December, at least. The worst of the snow usually comes in February, but it melts away soon enough. Why? Genevieve smiled thinly, coy and in control. Are you that afraid of being entrapped in here with me? What? Oh no, I could never be afraid of you, Miss Langley. Really now? I wonder. Genevieve coiled a strand of her red hair about one pale finger. Sometimes when you look at me it feels like... I don't know. Like you're seeing something else. Something else, miss? Or somebody else, maybe. You've been acting so distant and distracted ever since we went to church last Sunday. I didn't put you off too awfully, did I, with my outburst? Genevieve's grin widened. You want them to kiss, Wolfie? Oh, babe. They might. I hope you're not having second thoughts about all of this. All of what? Coming to Hatton, of course. Must be a far cry from London, and I doubt I'm half as well behaved as your last pupil. I'm wild. Well, I wonder. It was true enough that Genevieve and Clara were not alike. Genevieve was mischievous where Clara had been mild, fierce and uncompromising where Clara had been meek and docile. Genevieve possessed a good number of qualities, brashness, irreverence, and a short temper, to name a few, that were considered universally unappealing in a young woman. But Letitia found she could hardly blame Genevieve for her foibles. Genevieve had lived in relative seclusion for much of her life, with little in the way of entertainment, and nobody to confide in save her doting mother. She must have been horribly lonely. That was why she acted out so. She had little to lose and no friends she could confide in. Genevieve did not attend balls on the regular like Clara. She had not been afforded any opportunities to polish her manners, nor any real reason for doing so. Men across the country would doubtless have regarded Genevieve as Clara's inferior, but Letitia did not think that was true. I don't think you're truly cruel. You don't? No, we've not known one another all that long, but I am fond of you, Genevieve. Truly I am. If you were as fond of me as you say, you'd call me Jenny. My apologies, but I cannot do that. You will have to content yourself with Genevieve. Sounds awfully impersonal, but very well. Do what you must. Genevieve pouted, but this wasn't enough to sway Letitia. She smiled. You are different from my last pupil, I can say that much. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. You're a charming girl in your own right, and I enjoy the challenge. So I'm a challenge, am I? I think I like the sound of that. You do? Oh, yes. I'd rather be considered a challenge than a boring old nuisance. Genevieve laughed. Aren't you angry about what happened last Sunday, then? No, I'm not. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Well, I should scold you for your behaviour. It was extraordinarily shameful. It would be remiss of me to do so. I know you only meant to help me and, well... Letitia swallowed. I appreciate it. It was very thoughtful of you. I don't know if I put that much thought into it. I was being pretty thoughtless, to be quite honest. I didn't mean to get so riled up, but then, when I heard all that gossip, I couldn't sit still. I can't stand things like that. You must have a very keen sense of justice. Not really. I just hate how close-minded the people in Beeston are. Their lives are tiny and insignificant, so they latch on to the simplest of things. It's aggravating. Well, I think you put them all in their place. And then Rowena tried to put me in my place. She was livid. If I'd been any younger, I'm sure she would have smacked me. I'm glad she didn't. I'd hate for you to come to any harm when you were only trying to do the right thing. Oh, you're so sappy. Genevieve giggled, but the mischievous bite had gone from her fair face. Now she looked the young woman she truly was. Not quite sweet, but well-meaning at least. I'm glad that you're my governess, Miss Reed. I was terrified I was going to end up with another harridan like old Rowena, forever breathing down my neck. You're not at all what I was expecting. You're nothing like I was expecting either. Is that a good thing? I think so, yes. Letitia certainly hoped so. So you like me as I am now? Against my better judgment, yes. Ha! Genevieve laughed at this and leaned back on her chair so its wooden legs creaked. And Rowena said nobody would put up with me in my current state. That goes to show how much she knows. I do believe she has a point, though. On this matter, at least. Your manners do leave something to be desired, and your general knowledge too. We can always work on ourselves, so don't get complacent. Oh yes, I'm sure you're right. Only? Well, you know how it is. Sitting in the schoolroom for so long can get frightfully dull. And I don't think much of Henry. Oh no, it's Roman numerals, chat! I'm gonna look it up. I fucking hate Roman numerals. Eight. You sure? Okay, I'll believe you this time. I believe Wolfie and Psycho because they know things. I don't think much of Henry VIII either. He sounds like quite the scoundrel. I appreciate you trying to explain that to me, Wolfie. It's not going to stick in my head. I appreciate you trying though. Oh, I see. I've not heard it put that way before, but I suppose you have a point. He was awful, Miss Reed. How can one man need so many wives? I can't fathom it. Again, thank you for explaining to me. I will not remember it. Well, he was a king. He needed a male heir to the throne. Yes, and look where that got Anne Boleyn. Executed! He was even more ruthless than my father. At least my mother passed away from natural causes. This mention of Sylvie Langley made Letitia shudder anew. She had not much thought of the departed woman until she had seen the portrait in Arthur Langley's study. The image of the red-headed woman in the white dress had affixed itself firmly within her head, and now she could think of little else. Sylvie Langley was no longer a vague suggestion of personhood, a name without a face. The portraits in Arthur's office had brought her to life long after her death. She had existed once, now she was gone, to rejoin her little boy wherever he wandered. Oh God. Oh God, it's like it's doing math at me. I'm scared. Yes, Jewel. Her dress is so good. Genevieve has the most gorgeous dress in this game. It's obscene how beautiful she looks. She's so pretty. And she knows it. She knows she's pretty. Had their souls glided to heaven, or did they still lurk the moors, even more formless than a puff of air on a chilly winter's day? If Mr. Darwin's studies were to be believed, then there was no God. Perhaps they had simply ceased to exist. Somehow this thought was even more terrible and tragic than the latter. Oh, Wolfie, that's part of the saucy gothicness of it. There has to be some compromising sort of situationship to their connection, you know. It can't be pure a starting point. There has to be issues. I'm sorry, Miss Reed, but I think I've had enough of history for one day. It's all in one ear and out the other. I'm starting to get a terrible headache. Very well, then. Letitia, who had never been particularly stern, found herself wavering. We can move on to geography if you would prefer. Oh no, I wouldn't prefer that either. I'm tired of lessons. Be that as it may, there's still an hour to go until lunchtime. A whole hour? But that cannot be. It feels like we've been in the stuffy old room for an age. I'm afraid that it is. I certainly haven't tampered with the clocks. Now. Letitia turned back to the bookshelves, which were stacked with age-spotted textbooks which were many years old. We can take a break from history, but I have to teach you something. That is what I'm being paid for. I would hate to take advantage of your father's kindness. Now that's awfully considerate of you, when he's never cared tuppence about anybody else. Oh, Wolfie. Getting worried about the power dynamic going on here is barely an issue at the moment. There is always going to be complicated power dynamics in Gothics. Don't forget, Genevieve is also of the noble class. A peer-age tutor. So a governess, typically, a governess starts teaching when they are a child and teaches them as they grow. Genevieve never had a governess when she was a child because her father was so wrapped up in his grief over both his son and his wife dying in such close proximity. So Genevieve has gone without a tutor for much of her life. The housekeeper, what's her name? There's old housemaid, very strict woman, who's tried to sort of beat manners into her. It hasn't worked. So there was an ad out in the newspaper that our lovely girl, letitia, found and snatched the opportunity, expecting... Well, she's not dumb. I'm sorry, Slacker, I'm still training the bot. She's not dumb. She knows a fair amount from her father's books that he has all over the bloody place. She doesn't have much she can entertain herself out in the moors, so she obviously has read things. And she is quite wise. She's quick on the uptick. She just is easily bored, as most people who have issues with classroom settings are. So Letitia saw this newspaper clipping, an ad to tutor. Yeah, she's ADHD. Yeah. Basically. Cough cough. I'm not a psychological professional. Do not take this as the word of God. Basically, Letitia saw a newspaper clipping ad saying, "Please teach our unruly daughter. She needs a governess." And she was like, "Oh, unruly child? That's pretty common. I can help with that. I can get her on the right track." She comes into her new job out in the moors, and she's like, "This woman should have debuted in high society already. Why isn't she tutored? I have so much to catch up on." And we're kind of doing that right now. Genevieve, please, I wish you would try to be more cooperative. I've been trying, but it's hard when it's such a nice day. We should make the most of it before winter arrives, then we really will be trapped in here. So? Teacher glanced back at her grousing pupil, her hands folded at her front. What would you suggest that we do? I think we ought to move our lesson outdoors. Let's go for a walk. It's so stuffy in here, I can't concentrate. I doubt you'll be able to focus better outside. Letitia wrinkled her nose. In fact, I think it like you'll find more things to distract you. Tut tut. You have no faith in me, Letty. Letty? I'm absolutely sick of this place. I need to clear the cobwebs from my mind. Besides... Genevieve smiled coyly. You've not had a chance to see the moors yourself, have you? I saw them when Mr. Lockett drove me to Hatton, and then again we went to church. That is enough for me. The face is funny to you, because it is funny. The art here has some very good expressions. You say that, but I don't think that counts, not really. It doesn't? No. You might think you've seen the moors, but you haven't, not properly. If you want to take them in, you'll need to walk around them on your own two legs. Otherwise, it's just not the same. Yes, she's calling her Letty, because Letitia won't call her Jenny, so she's like, well, one of us has to be called by a nickname. And by God, if it's not going to be me, it's going to be you. Well, Letitia demurred helplessly. It would be best, she told herself, to put an end to all this silliness and return to their lessons. As much as she liked Genevieve, she could not let her pupil have her own way all the time. That would be asking for trouble. Genevieve was right on a few counts, however. The air in the schoolroom did feel stuffy, and Letitia herself was beginning to lose track of her own musings. Her mind was slow, her thoughts soupy, full of ghostly images. Letitia doubted she'd be able to teach Genevieve anything of worth in her current state. She was too distracted. Perhaps she needed to clear her mind, too. All right, then. Letitia eventually relented, her shoulders slumping as she did so. We can go for a turn outside, but we must be back in time for lunch. Do you comprehend, Genevieve? Oh, yes, thank you, Letty. Thank you very much. You're the best governess I've ever had. I'm the only governess you've ever had. And out of all the governesses in the world, I'm very glad that you're mine. Yours? Yes, indeed. Who else would you belong to? It is my father that pays your wages, mind. Now let's go. I am certain this will be most diverting. Genevieve led Letitia through the hallways of Hatton, their fingers entwined and their palms pressed flush all the while. Letitia had half a mind to tell Genevieve that this wasn't strictly necessary. She was no invalid, and she could walk unaided. Genevieve's help was in fact more akin to a hindrance. She moved much too quickly, no doubt spurred on by her childlike enthusiasm, and Letitia found it hard to keep pace with her. She stumbled more than once, which made Genevieve tut. Hurry along, Letty, I'm tired of this old place. I need some fresh air, else I feel I'll soon expire. I appreciate that, but Genevieve, please slow down. Letitia panted, her cheeks stained pink with exertion. I'm not as young as you are, and... Nonsense! Genevieve's voice, girlish and light, cut through Letitia's complaints as easily as a knife through butter. You aren't that much older than I am. Don't try to pretend that you're an invalid. Even Rowena is sprier than this, and she is ancient. Genevieve, please. Letitia tried to petition Genevieve, but her words rolled off her back. Genevieve was so excited, euphoric even, that she failed to pay attention to her surroundings. Which... Rowena? Rowena! Why are you surprised? It's Rowena. Even Rowena. What did I say, Psycho? What did I say? What do you think I said? What did I say, Slacko? What did I say? Rowena? Rowena? I don't know. Whatever. She failed to pay attention to her surroundings, which was probably how the collision occurred. Letitia saw Abigail before Genevieve did. The scullery maid was walking down the carpeted hallway, a tray in her hands. Wiener! Rowena! It's easy to say that with that name, though. It's very easy to turn Rowena into Rowena. So close to that. Upon the tray was a teapot, a steaming cup of tea, and a plate of delicately formed biscuits. Seemed likely this tray was intended for Arthur Langley. Abigail must have been summoned to his study, a small snack in hand. Abigail was paying a great deal of attention to her burden. Her tongue poked out the corner of her mouth, her eyes narrowed with concentration. She moved very slowly like a clockwork soldier and seemed to weigh every single step she was taking. She moved with very steady, deliberate paces, right foot, then left. As her hands were so burdened, she could not readjust her hair, which was beginning to come unpinned from her messy bun. Oh no. Letitia, like the tragic Cassandra, or even Beeston's very own soothsayer, Saint Osbert, seemed the only one who knew what would occur before it did. Her mind jumped ahead several paces. She saw the collision, and the cry, and then the shatter of fine china. Tea and biscuits spilled everywhere. She could not let that happen. Genevieve, please slow down. Stand aside. What in the... This cry was at least enough to alert Abigail. She raised her head, eyes wide with surprise. But alas, it was too late. Genevieve wasn't looking where she was going. She was still glancing over her shoulder back at Letitia, her eyes shining. Come on, Letty, what's the fuss? Let's go already. But Genevieve... Ah! All of a sudden, Genevieve was upon Abigail. There was a gasp of surprise, then a loud cry, followed by a dull thud and a crash. Then there was silence. Everything had happened so quickly. Letitia couldn't quite get her bearings. She felt disoriented, though she wasn't the one who had fallen. Abigail was. Now the poor maid sat slumped upon the floor ground, her legs stuck out in awkward directions beneath the hem of her skirt like those of a wooden toy, and yet more of her dark tresses had come unpinned. Sprawled upon the ground as she was, Abigail looked most undignified. The spread of her legs, coupled with her rounded stomach, made Letitia flush. The tray lay a few paces away from her, upturned. The biscuits were scattered across the floor, mixed with shards of broken teapot. The hot tea itself, meanwhile, was soaking into the carpet. The rich crimson dyed wine red with the stuff. The carpet was so stained, Letitia doubted any amount of scrubbing would be able to get it out. It was ruined, as was the delicate tea set. At least the tea tray itself could not shatter. That was the one upshot to this situation. That and the fact none of the burning tea had scalded poor Abigail. Genevieve's clumsiness had not incurred any human casualties. That seemed little consolation, however, when one regarded how hopelessly fractured the teapot was. Now 12 pieces rather than one. Letitia was ignorant about ceramics, but she fancied it had been an expensive piece. What in the world would Miss Rye say when she heard of its fate? "Oh, my giddy aunt! That bloody well hurt." Abigail, for the present, seemed too stunned to assess the damage her fool had wrought. She rubbed her aching behind with one hand, then glanced up at Genevieve, who was still standing. "Would it kill thou to watch where there's going, young miss? They almost had my head off." "Yes, I apologize. Here, let me help you." Letitia made to help Abigail up, but she was halted by a hand about her wrist. Sharp nails dug into her skin, and she winced. "Genevieve?" "Don't." Genevieve's voice was so cool when she replied, Letitia felt a chill run down her spine. Her voice was a hard one, devoid of concern and compassion. "Genevieve?" Letitia's voice faltered. She glanced between the fallen scullery maid and her sulky pupil, confounded. "Can't you see that Abigail is hurt? We should—" "Do nothing." But what?" Genevieve's eyes flashed. "It's her own foolish fault that this happened. She should have been paying more attention, but she didn't, and now look what she's done. She's made such a mess." Miss Langley, please." Abigail hauled herself to her feet with no small amount of effort. Breathing heavily, she wiped down her crumpled skirts, then raised her chin. "I was trying to be careful. I always am when it comes to the master's tea. If only I hadn't what?" Genevieve let her hand fall from Letitia's wrist. She stepped forth, crunching a piece of broken china underfoot, and glowered. "Are you answering back, Fletcher?" "No, ma'am. I didn't mean to blame thee. I know 'twas an accident, only meant to say, if thou had been paying a mite more attention then." "So you really are blaming me? How deplorable! Are you so simple-minded you can't confess to your own mistakes?" Genevieve, please." "You stay out of this, Letty. As fond of you as I am, you'd best be quiet. This—" Genevieve gestured to the sodden carpet, the splintered teapot, and upturned plate of biscuits. "It's entirely the fault of that maid, who, for some god-forsaken reason, never thought to learn how to walk in a straight line. Why, she's every bit as dense as the idiot villagers from Beeston." "Ma'am, please." An ugly red blush rose to Abigail's cheeks and throat. "I was born in Beeston. It's my home." "I know it's your home. I know full well, in fact. You come from poverty, if I recall correctly, and lived in squalor. The 6th child in a family of 13. You'd think your family would learn to stop breeding like wild beasts when they could scarce afford to feed you all, but apparently not." "Ma'am?" Abigail's resolve began to waver. She took a step back, her eyes beginning to well with tears. "If this is about the china, I do apologize. I'll accept that 'twas my fault. I should have been more careful. I was just taking it to the father, and there was a lot on my mind. I really am sorry." "So now you apologize. I suppose it's better late than never. Still, your Genevieve can be a real bitch." Genevieve looked Abigail up and down, her lip curled in evident disgust. "I can imagine there would be a lot on your mind, especially when my father is concerned. You and him have quite the relationship, don't you?" Begging the pardon, Mum, but I don't quite follow. I think you do follow. You must. Don't try to play coy with me. You've been taking my father's meals on a regular basis, haven't you? I suppose so, Mum. There's nothing to suppose. I know that you have. Everybody does. He asked for you specifically. Sometimes you stay in his study to chat. Genevieve laughed bitterly without humour. Now what would my father, a well-regarded medieval historian, have to chat about with a simple peasant girl like you? I don't rightly know, Mum. Sometimes he just likes to talk. He says he gets lonely, you see, ever since their mother passed. I don't mean any harm. I'm just keeping him company, like. Company? I'm sure you are. You're all very good at keeping men company in your family. Abigail's face turned redder at the slight, but she tried to maintain her composure. She screwed her fingers into her fists at her sides, perhaps in an attempt to stop them from quavering as she said, I know what that means, but that's all talk. My family's good, God-fearing folk. We wouldn't. Say what you want. I've heard the stories. Your older sisters seem very popular among Beeston's locals. I'm not surprised you've gone the same way. Please, Mum, I would never. You can say whatever you want, but that won't change the facts. It won't make your stomach any smaller either. Oh! Abigail took another step back, her arms moving protectively around her stomach. She bent forth, trembling, and mumbled. Please, Mum, that's got it all wrong. This head's got nothing to do with the father. This is just... I don't care what it is. I'm tired of listening to your excuses. I'm tired of looking at you. I can't believe my father hasn't fired you yet, if not for his peace of mind than mine. This sort of thing really cannot stand. I'm sure he'll get rid of you soon enough, though. When you're so wide you have to waddle, and you've nothing left to offer him. Now get out of my sight. I'm sure Miss Rye will be very interested to hear what your clumsiness has wrought. Yes, Mum. Abigail tried to apologize, but no words came from her mouth. She was trembling badly, and yet more tears began to bead in her eyes. With no way to defend herself from Genevieve's accusations, and no way to dry her encroaching tears, she could do nothing but flee. Letitia watched on, similarly speechless, as Abigail fled. She looked so utterly defeated. Letitia's heart sank for her sake. She'd wanted to believe Genevieve was a kind girl, good-natured if a touch impulsive, but now she was beginning to wonder. No truly kind woman could have spoken to one of her maids so. She had not just been harsh, but cruel alongside it, sadistic even. If Genevieve would only apologize, Letitia might have been able to forgive her folly. People could say all manner of unpleasant things while agitated. But alas. Well, at least that's all taken care of. Genevieve smiled, all sweetness and light, as though nothing had happened, and looked back over her shoulder at Letitia. I'm sorry that you had to witness something so unsightly. Shall we be on our way? I don't want anybody else interrupting us. Genevieve didn't appear at all guilty about what she had done, nor what she had said. Letitia couldn't detect so much as a flicker of remorse upon her pretty face, and that unnerved her far more than any of her nighttime delusions ever had. Oh dear. Turns out the young lady of the manor is a bitch. Ah, the air out here is so crisp. Don't you find it agreeable, Letty? I suppose it is. Refreshing enough, yes. Refreshing? Genevieve tossed back her head, her auburn curls bouncing, and laughed. Why, it's simply divine. Coming out here is far better than being stuck inside the boring old schoolroom. I finally feel alive. Genevieve twirled upon the heath, her green dress billowing about her slender legs like a shroud. Quite a lot of her legs were on display thanks to her childish prancing, and very fine legs they were too. The fine ball of Genevieve's ankle jutted out above her lace-up shoes. The curve of her calf was neatly formed. Don't worry, she's still hot, even though she's a bitch. She looked like a dancer, nimbly twirling across the stage, though her surroundings could hardly compare to the glitz and glamour of London's Lyceum Theatre. The fine day Genevieve had praised so much was not overly sunny. In actual fact, it was quite overcast, the sunlight all but blotted out by a cover of grey, wispy clouds. What little sunlight that did filter through this layer was weak and wan, barely enough to illuminate the myriad pools of rank, muddy water dotted hither and thither. The grass, which weighed upon Letitia's feet meanwhile, was long and lank. It had grown unchecked over the years, and had fast spiralled out of control. Unlike the Langleys' neatly pruned and planted garden, which was fenced off from the rest of the marshland, the moors were untamed. They did not belong to anybody, and as such had no reason to impress. They simply existed, so vast and sprawling it made Letitia feel out of sorts. I am going to just go to BRB, guys, and get myself a refill of water, because I'm getting a bit dry and I don't have any water. So enjoy the BRB screen for a bit. I shouldn't be gone for long. Ba-da-bum-bum. Ba-da-bum. Hello again. Thank you for the stretchies too, Wolf. I am back. Oh. Guys, a cat has just walked in. I may still not be back completely. Hi, Nay. Hi. Hi. There you go. I know. Your fur's kind of dry, you know. You've been sitting in the sun too long. She says, I'm going to sit on the bed, and then when you talk to people and it's not me, I'm going to leave because I'm probably going to get grumpy. Because she can tell when it's not about her. Yeah, she's telling me if... She's already telling me off. She's already leaving. Oh. Oh. Nay, nay. I know. I know. It should be about you at every hour of the day. I know. Yeah. There she go. Rah 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 rah. Those are the magic words, guys. For when you need to tell a cat that it's silly time and they need to go run around about things. Those are the magic words. Just letting you know on that secret. I thought it might be good for you to know. Let's get back into it. I'm hoping to go for 2 hours today. That's like my bare minimum goal for streams, honestly. Of course, of course. Genevieve's mood might have been bright, but Letitia's was anything but. Hey now, Letty, you'd best keep your wits about you. Genevieve darted forwards and took Letitia's hand before Letitia could stumble indecorously into a nearby pool. The land's pretty much waterlogged. You'll have to be careful or you'll veer off in course and ruin your shoes. Oh, yes. Letitia flushed, surprised at Genevieve's sudden proximity. I'm sorry. I'll try to be more careful in the future. Please do. I'd hate it if your precious ankles were nibbled away by eels. Letitia looked down at the puddle with newfound anxiety. It seemed fairly shallow, and she couldn't see any black bodies writhing within it, but perhaps... Are there many eels around here? Oh, heaps and heaps. They usually come out at night when it's hot and humid. The villagers over in Beeston catch eels on the moors during the summer. Eels are so cool, guys. Have you seen eels? I love eels. They're so cool. And how are these eels caught exactly? How do you think? Genevieve grinned maliciously. With their bare hands, of course. Their bare hands? Letitia was beset with images of swarthy villagers, the very same villagers she had heard mocking her at St. Osbert's. Eels are so cool. Crouched by these pools of water in the dark while the warm summer wind moaned, they would stare intently into the water, watching and waiting, until lit by the moonlight they saw beady eyes and sharp serrated teeth. Their prey targeted, these men would then strike. They'd lean in, seizing the eels betwixt their fingers and... But Genevieve's devilish giggles soon made it apparent that this fantasy was a foolish one. I can't believe I fell for that, Letty. Who in their right mind would ever fish for eels with their bare hands, of all things? Well, I apologize. Never gone out to catch eels before. I don't know how it's done. It's done the same way you catch any ordinary fish, with bait and a line. It's not so very complicated. And who taught you about that? Gerard did. He took me with him on a trip to catch eels once when I was a little girl. I begged and begged and begged, and he finally relented. After my father gave him permission, of course. I can't imagine Miss Rye was happy about that. No, she most certainly was not. She said hunting for eels was no fit pastime for a young lady. She's always been determined to spoil my fun, and there's precious little of it around here to be had as it is. Well, I soon showed her. You're referring to the eel you caught in her slippers? Of course. Ah, a classic. You gotta be putting eels in people's shoes, folks. It's just funny. It's what you do with eels. You put it in gumboots. You put it in sneakers. It's just what you do. Genevieve smirked. It was a large beast, too, with such sharp teeth. I was afraid it might bite me. Now that raised an interesting question. How did you carry it all the way from the moors to the house without it wriggling free? Oh, I killed it. You killed it? I bashed its head in with a rock. Why? Genevieve looked at Letitia, nonplussed. You're not squeamish, are you? Oh, Letitia's very squeamish. Look at that woman. She's not made for anything. Letitia had never thought of herself as being particularly squeamish. Oh, honey, you are squeamish. You're very squeamish. But the casual manner in which Genevieve relayed this story made her feel uneasy. Letitia did not like eels in general. Kathy, hi! Welcome in. She found them highly unpleasant creatures, what with their rows of needlepoint teeth and wicked eyes. The death of an eel seemed no great loss, but Letitia could not imagine conducting so grisly a killing herself. Eels are great. We love eels, chat. It seemed almost unthinkable. How old did you say you were when this happened, Genevieve? Not so old. Only 7 or 8, I think. That's a great age to kill an eel. Perfect age to be killing an eel. Very good for you. Very good for the spirit. And you still killed this eel? Weren't you afraid of it? No. Why should I have been afraid? Gerard showed me how to kill the eel painlessly enough, and besides, they're worthless if you don't kill them. If they're not dead, the cook can't fashion them into her famous eel pies. Eel pies? It's a common dish around here. Jellied eels, too. I know it sounds unpleasant, but don't turn your nose up at the idea. Not before you've tried it. Eels are really quite tasty. Though Genevieve's voice was unwavering, Letitia was less than convinced. She could not imagine that any dish made from eels would taste good, particularly given the diets of said eels. Eels were consumers of carrion, horrible writhing creatures that lurked in muddy water that fed on dead flesh and the corpses of fishes. Letitia had never eaten eel before, not knowingly at least, but the prospect of it was not at all appealing. Eels aren't all you have to watch out for here, though. You also need to be wary of the will-o'-wisps. You mean lost spirits? Letitia's brow furrowed. You don't believe in ghosts, do you, Genevieve? Well, why not? They would certainly liven the place up a bit, though I know that's a paradox. The moors are so very vast, after all. Genevieve threw her arms out wide and twirled on the spot, her skirts fluttering once more about her thighs. Who's to say that spirits and phantoms and devils don't exist? There'd be thousands of places for them to hide around here. For all we know, they could be listening to us right now and laughing. I wonder what they would make of us. Letitia glanced around her surroundings with wide, frightened eyes. All of a sudden, she felt tense, on edge. Was the rustling she could hear little more than the breeze running through the reeds, or was it an invisible monster? Sorry if my model is moving around a lot, guys. The cat came back, and she's demanding things. Letitia did not know, but suddenly Gerard Locket's talk of St. Osbert and of his older brother's unfortunate death, had he not drowned deep in the marches, did not seem very improbable after all. Oh shit! Chat! Kathy's to redeem the thing. I have to give Hine a treat. We have to give her a treat, guys! We have to give her a treat! I'll be right back. Hine very purposefully ran to her catio, noticed that I had, as soon as she noticed that I had said the word treats, she was like, oh my god, treats? So she runs to her catio. She gets out in the catio. She sits there. She turns around to face the catio, the door inside, and looks at me and she says, I want to eat treats in the tunnel, please, mummy. So she's eating treats out in the tunnel. She loves doing that sometimes. I don't know why. Maybe it makes her feel powerful that she can eat treats outside and no one steals it. She got her treatsies. Oh dear, it appears my model has frozen up again. I must restart VTube Studio. My beautiful functioning program. And we're back. Okay. Sorted. All good now. Genevieve. Oh, sorry. I forgot the stutter. Genevieve, please. Letitia swallowed. I don't think young ladies ought to speak of apparitions. It seems a highly unsuitable topic given your social standing. Oh, everything is unsuitable given my status. Genevieve rolled her eyes. That's why I don't want to be a young lady. It's so hopelessly constrictive. I think I've given you a lot of leeway personally. Perhaps I've been too lax. Oh no, you've been just lax enough. Now, shall we keep going? You'd best stick close to me. I know my way around here like the back of my hand. But if you lose sight of me, you might get lost. I'd hate for you to be trapped here, wandering forever and ever until you meet your maker. Genevieve set off once more, with brisk but easy strides. Letitia struggled to hurry after her, mild with her own anxieties though she was. With every step she took, her mind was beset with new images. Here, there was a young Genevieve, bashing the head of an eland with a rock. And there was the scene from only half an hour hence. Genevieve with the angry eyes, bearing it down upon Abigail Fletcher like an avenging demon. How could Genevieve laugh so after all she had done? Did she really not care for Abigail's feelings? Genevieve, no doubt sensing something was awry, paused. She turned, her brow furrowed, then spoke. Are you all right, Letty? You're walking awfully slowly. Oh, Letitia flushed, abashed at being caught out, and replied softly. I'm fine. Are you sure? You're not tired already, are you? No, I'm not. So you say, but... Genevieve's smile widened. Are you quite certain your aged legs can continue to keep pace with me? My legs are hardly aged. I'm not that old. I'm not old. They had only been walking for 20 minutes. Letitia's pride, meagre though it was, bristled. This seemed the reaction Genevieve had hoped for. Alas, she began to titter. I know, I'm only winding you up, you silly dear, but why do you look so weary? Surely something must be amiss. It is. Nothing in particular. I will be the judge of that. Come now, don't be a stranger. Won't you confide in me? A few other people here to talk to, as you should know here in Hatton. Well, now feeling sorry for Genevieve, Letitia set aside her uneasy thoughts and responded to her young pupil. I was just thinking, that's all. About the ghosts? No, not about the ghosts. Then the eels? No, it's more. Well... Letitia shifted. She knew it would be easier to keep her thoughts locked inside her head. But all of a sudden they seemed much too numerous. It was all very well to speak of Genevieve's past, but it was Genevieve's present that Letitia was more concerned about. She knew what she wished to discuss, would doubtless sour Genevieve's chair. Yet many things had been spoiled already that day. It would be worse, Letitia could tell, if she remained silent. Letitia knew from past experience that some thoughts, if left unvoiced, would only lie heavy within her heart. So great a burden, she might have commiserated with Sisyphus. I just wanted to know. Letitia drew in a breath. It was now or never. Did you have to be so very rude to poor Abigail? I know you have your suspicions about her pregnancy, but even if you are correct, that would make her a victim. I doubt she deserved any of the scorn you heaped upon her. Ah! Genevieve exhaled. So that's why you look so forlorn, is it? Are you worried about Abigail? Yes, I am. I tried to put her from my mind, but... Well, I know as the young mistress of the manor you can speak to your servants as you wish, but I still thought it unnecessary. A brief silence fell between the pair. Genevieve surveyed Letitia coolly, her nostrils flaring, while Letitia glanced down at her shoes. For some reason, she found it very hard to meet Genevieve's eyes. What would Genevieve do now? She had confessed the truth. Would she turn the brunt of her fiery temper upon Letitia next? Genevieve might have dressed like an English lady, but she had the temperament of a wild Celtic queen, rash, unreserved, and wholly unapologetic. Though Genevieve's skin was not woaded as Boudica's had been, she seemed quite strikingly like the battle maiden of old. Letitia had no desire to become the subject of her scorn in Abigail's place, and neither did she wish to spoil the relationship which had begun to bud between the pair of them. Letitia had not come to Hatton to be Genevieve's friend, but it had been comforting to have an ally in so dismal a place. Without Genevieve, she would be quite lost. Perhaps she had said too much. I'm sorry. Letitia whispered softly, her courage gone. Perhaps I went too far. I shouldn't presume to tell you how to act. I just thought... I was worried. The sentence, alas, went unfinished, just as many other affairs in Letitia's life. Letitia was nothing like Genevieve. Her short-tempered pupil had stood up to a whole congregation of people for her sake. Letitia could never have done such a thing. Whenever she tried to stand her ground, she felt it crumble beneath her. She was, and always had been, a most contemptuous coward. Oh, Letty! To Letitia's relief, Genevieve's expression softened, her eyes became gentle, almost liquid, and a soft sigh escaped her lips. You're right, of course. I was too harsh on Abigail. Her situation, ghastly though it is, isn't really her fault. It's just... I might be 18, but I'm still a child at heart. When I see things I don't like, I get so angry I don't know how to control myself. I never learnt how. Didn't your mother try to teach you? She tried, but she was much too doting. She could never stay mad at me for long. In any case, she never made me cross, so she never saw me when I was at my worst. And your nurse, the one who you said beat you? Oh, I despised her. Genevieve's pretty face twisted into a look of supreme disgust. She was such a cow. I delighted in making her angry. But what of her punishments? Didn't they deter you? No, not really. I'm stubborn, you see. Whenever she punished me, it made me more determined to avenge myself. Her scoldings only fanned the flames of my temper rather than fetting them. Christ alive! I was glad when Father let my porter go. It was the nicest thing he's ever done for me. Genevieve crouched down by the bank of a shallow lake. The hem of her green dress trailed across the muddy ground, and Letitia winced. That was going to leave a stain. But Genevieve seemed not to notice. Genevieve fished about the overgrown reeds, her fingertips half dipped in dirt. Soon she found what she was searching for in a rose, her back straightening. In her hand was a rock streaked with dirt. Her fingers, once white, were now daubed with the stuff like tribal war paint. But again, Genevieve ignored it. Genevieve really was like a warrior queen of old. Her posture as she stood by the riverbank, rock in hand, was nothing short of regal. Maybe, if I had a proper teacher from the beginning, I wouldn't have turned out the way I have. I might be like every other little lady across the country who can hold her tongue. I know Rowena would prefer that. Sometimes I think I'd prefer that too, but... Genevieve drew back her hand, fingers still curled about the muddy rock, then she flung it forth so the rock escaped her grasp. Letitia watched on, intrigued, as the rock skimmed across the surface of the hazy water, bounced once, twice, thrice, before sinking, claimed by the mires with a dull splash. When the rock vanished from view, Letitia clapped politely. That was very impressive. Do you think so? Yes, indeed. I've seen fully grown men in Hyde Park who can't skip rocks half as well as you. Prospective suitors tried to show off whenever they saw Clara, but their stones always sank. Letitia smiled fondly at the memory, now a touch more at ease. Used to make her laugh. Clara was your previous pupil, yes? That's right, Clara Mortimer. Do you miss her? From time to time. I can't allow myself to dwell on the past, though. I ought to be better occupied on schooling you. You can be quite the handful. Letitia was surprised as she spoke, about just how true her words were. Though she still thought of Clara. Genevieve had long since taken precedence in her mind, both for her sweet smiles and her tempestuous temper. It was startling, really, just how quickly Genevieve had dethroned Clara. Once Letitia had thought Clara would be all she could think of. Now, however... A handful, am I? Genevieve reflected upon this, her muddy fingers curled by her sides. You're right, of course. I made a horrible scene back then, and a horrible mess too. If only I'd looked where I was going. So you admit what happened in the hallway was your fault? Of course it was. I was never under any illusions about that. I know I wasn't paying attention, but I meant Abigail no malice. I just wanted to show you the moors. I've played around here since I was a young girl, but I was always alone. I thought it would be nice to have a friend to share things with. I wanted our little jaunt to be special. That's why I was in such a hurry, you see. And of course I had to ruin everything. I'm so clumsy. We all make mistakes. Not even young ladies are immune. I know that, but given I am a lady, a fact you often seem to remind me of, I ought to be able to admit as such. I know, too, that it was wrong of me to lash out at Abigail. She wasn't at fault, it's just... Genevieve turned to meet Letitia's eyes. Her expression was an earnest one, framed by a shroud of fiery hair. You don't know how hard it is for me seeing her every day when she looks like that. It's humiliating for me knowing my father has been carrying on such a way and being unable to do anything to stop it. I can't stop thinking about my father and about her, about all the things they must have done so soon after my mother's death. It's an insult that father still allows you to work in Hatton, both to me and to my mother's memory. I can't stand it. Genevieve paused after this outburst, her chest rising and falling. Roses had bloomed in her glassy cheeks, and she looked out of breath, positively wind-swept, though the wind itself was gentle. She bit the inside of her cheek, then dipped her head. All of a sudden she looked unusually, oddly vulnerable. I'm sorry. I said too much. I always do. I should learn how to hold my tongue. It's not like anybody cares what I think. Genevieve. For some reason, Letitia felt compelled to take a step forth. She had been disconcerted when first she had realized that the young girl she had hoped to educate was in fact a grown woman. But now she could see that Genevieve was still little more than a child. Growing up in relative seclusion, Genevieve had never learned to master her own emotions. She was volatile, yes, but now letitia was certain she meant no ill will. She was lashing out because there was nothing else she could do. She did not need to be scolded. Instead, she needed a friend she could take solace in. If Letitia could be that friend, she would have been honoured. She did not want Genevieve to cry. You poor, poor thing. Ah, it's one of the pretty CGs, guys. Look at it. The pretty pictures. I love the art in this game so much. Oh, thank you for the stretchies. And the hydrate. It's so pretty. I mean, look at the clouds even. Just look at the whole piece, not just them. So true, Hydra, so true. I don't know, Tilshy, I think they might still be hetero. I think we might be okay. I think they might still be straight. We might be good, we might be safe. Thank you for the head pats. I don't know, is Mix It Up doing it? I did open Mix It Up late. Oh no, it might not be doing it. I apologize if it did not do it. Hang on, let me just... And they were roommates. Yep, they were very good friends. 100%. I apologize if you didn't get the headbats, Tush. I've been mixed up a bit late, so it might not be doing that. But I see it, I feel it. I promise. Letitia opened her arms and drew Genevieve to her side. She let her fingers run through Genevieve's hair, while Genevieve relaxed her head against her chest. She was grateful that Genevieve did not push her away. If she had balked, Letitia did not think she could have borne it. You don't need to apologize. I think I understand how you feel. You do? Well, not entirely, no. I can see that you're hurting, though. That's why you said all that you did, isn't it? You didn't really want to hurt Abigail. No, I didn't. I wish I could reverse the clock and take back all those things I said. You must have thought me so awful. I admit I was shocked. But now you've told me all you have, I don't think any less of you. You don't? No, I don't. I think you're being very brave confiding in me so. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, of course I would confide in you. I have nobody else to talk to, in fact. Genevieve smiled, a watery smile. Trembling, she kneaded away encroaching tears with the flat of her unsullied hand, then said, I'd love it if you could be my friend. Let's go! Friend zone! Let's go! It's not gay! Time passed, and before Letitia knew it, September had segued into October, bringing with it icy winds that shook the ivy draped around Hatton Manor's aged walls. No, she got friends, Aunt Tushy. They're friends. Soon a full month had passed since Letitia's arrival at Hatton. She was shocked at just how quickly it had happened, and she knew she had Genevieve to thank for that. Were it not for Genevieve's company, the hours would have slowed to a trickle. Some friends do kiss. me observing my friends in high school, they definitely did kiss people who were their friends. I was never included, of course. But, I did note that some friends kissed. Genevieve made things lively and exciting simply by existing. Her moods were mercurial. Yes, she sometimes turned her nose up at the mere suggestion of studying, but Letitia could always coax her into compliance. Oh, very well, Genevieve would growl, with her arms folded and her lips pursed. I don't really want to go over the boring old battle of Agincourt again, but if you insist. Throughout this month, Letitia's relationship with Genevieve deepened, occasional disagreements about historical battles aside, which was perhaps to be expected given how much time they had spent in one another's company. When Letitia had first arrived at Hatton, she had hoped her pupil would be young and amicable, an obedient 6-year-old ready to learn. Genevieve had betrayed her expectations, but Letitia was no longer upset by this turn of events. It was, in fact, quite the contrary. It was precisely because Genevieve was a woman, not much younger than she was, that Letitia could get along with her so well. She was somebody to talk to, at least, and Genevieve, for all her faults, loved to talk. Genevieve wasn't the most accomplished at history or geography. She was terrible at remembering names and retaining dates, but her conversation skills were second to none. Genevieve was not the only person Letitia spoke to, however. She had struck up an uneasy acquaintanceship of sorts with Dinah, and she always paused to chat to Abigail whenever she passed her in the hallway. After their talk on the moors. Same Azel! I wrote them all down, that's the only reason I remember anything. I wrote them all down and then obsessively check my notes all the time. After their talk on the moors, Genevieve had, to Abigail's surprise, apologized to Abigail for insulting her so harshly. Letitia had not been present to hear the apology, but it seemed Genevieve had made no secret that she was to be attributed to her change of heart. I never thought I'd see the young madam go back on her word. She's always been so stubborn. Thou must be some sort of witch, Abigail had said with a wry smile. Thank you kindly, miss. Thou art too kind. Oh no, Letitia had demurred, her cheeks tinged pink. I didn't do anything that deserves your thanks. I should have been harder on her from the very beginning. We can all look back on what we should have done, Abigail had said wisely, one round hand resting on her belly. That moonin' won't change the past. Thou's done more'n enough already. Not many other ladies would care about maids like me. Oh, I'm no lady, I'm just a governess. Just a governess, you say, Abigail had scoffed. But thou can read and write and do arithmetic. And the head, that's much more of a lady than I'll ever be, I warrant you. But thou still talks to me like an equal. It mightn't mean much to you, but I appreciate it. And so the days passed. The sky became cloudier, the weather cooler. The wild oak trees that sprouted on the moors began to lose their leaves, and draughts slipped in between the cracks of the windows and between the bottoms of the doors. Other than these slight changes in the weather, however, nothing of any real import happened. Nothing, that was, save the gradual swelling of Abigail's stomach. They were not particularly close, but still, Letitia found herself worrying about Abigail. Abigail seemed cheerful. She hadn't, or so it seemed, been too infected by Genevieve's censures. But her physical condition only continued to deteriorate. Abigail groaned when she was bidden to bend down, and she fast became breathless from the simplest of tasks. Now her stomach was so large it was immediately obvious. She must have been 5, maybe 6 months pregnant. Abigail smiled bravely whenever Letitia inquired as to her condition, insistent that she was all right. But Letitia was certain that this was an act. She was certain Abigail would be dismissed in due course before the month of October was up. But even so, the news came as a shock to her. Letitia first learned about it in the middle of October, on an overcast Wednesday morning. She had been busy arranging her hair, sparing loose locks into place with pins, when she heard a familiar knocking upon her bedroom door. "Excuse me, miss?" Dinah's voice, now as familiar to Letitia as her own mother's, drifted towards her through the panelled wood. "Your breakfast is ready. May I come in?" "Oh, yes, of course." Letitia hurried to fix her hair, then crossed her bedroom in a series of smart steps. She took the door handle and turned it, allowing Dinah entrance. "Thank you, miss." Dinah dropped a neat curtsy before entering Letitia's bedchamber. She set the breakfast tray down upon Letitia's bed, as she so often did, and turned to leave. Before she did, however, she paused. Her lips pursed into a small frown. "Before I go, miss, there is something I feel I should tell you about." "Oh? And what is that?" Letitia's mind was full of plans for upcoming lessons with Genevieve, and she was only half paying attention to Dinah. She thought she would start the day off with a bit of history. It was Genevieve's least favourite lesson, and Letitia preferred to get it over and done with as quickly as possible. And then perhaps they could both read some poetry. Letitia herself was quite partial to Wordsworth, though Genevieve seemed to think his work dry. Perhaps she would prefer the wild, slightly more manic verses of Coleridge, though such fervid writing was not perhaps fit for a fanciful woman like Genevieve. Then, when Genevieve had finished her lessons for the morning, there would be an hour's break for lunch. One of the servants, usually it was a tall gangly girl called Annie Hubbard, would bring something up to the schoolroom, cold meat perhaps, or calves' feet jelly, or a piece of game pie. After lunch, Letitia thought she might don the mantle of an art teacher. Letitia herself was not particularly accomplished in the fine arts, but she knew some theory, and she could sketch still lifes tolerably well. Genevieve should find art a wonderful distraction, at least after a morning spent on history and poetry. Perhaps they could even go outside to draw, sketchbooks and charcoal in hand. It was a cool day, but not uncomfortably so, and it had been a long time since they had last gone for a walk in the moors. Letitia was unsure when they'd next get the chance. Soon it would be winter, and then... "Reed? Miss Reed? Were you listening to me, Miss Reed?" "What? Oh!" Letitia had been so ensconced in her thoughts of Genevieve and what she might care to do, that she had quite forgotten Dinah. This had been something of a recurring trend after their walk in the moors. Genevieve was often all Letitia could think of. The young mistress with her vivid eyes and wild, untamed locks had quite captured Letitia's imagination. Had Letitia been more circumspect, this might have alarmed her, but contrary to how she felt about Clara, she found she did not mind overly much. "Thank you for the pasta check, Kathy." Her feelings toward Genevieve were normal. She was her governess, after all. Fussing over her was her duty. Certainly nobody else in Hatton Manor would. "I apologize, Dinah. I was thinking about Laddie Langley's morning lessons." "You think about the young madam a lot, don't you?" "Well, yes, I suppose I do." Letitia offered Dinah a forced, awkward smile. "Is that a problem?" Letitia began to fear that Dinah with her narrowed eyes could see inside her head, to the thoughts of Genevieve which swelled inside her skull. But surely that was silly. Dinah's grey eyes might have been piercing, but she couldn't read minds. And even if she could, Letitia had done nothing to feel ashamed of. "No." Dinah eventually relented after a brief pause. "It is no problem. I am glad that you care about the young miss so much. Somebody needs to keep her in line." "It's very kind of you making her apologize to Abigail." Letitia did not bother to ask how Dinah knew that. She was well aware that the Scurriley maids all slept together beneath the rafters of the attic. Doubtless they gossiped together too. She did have qualms, however, about Dinah's precise phrasing. "I'm not sure if I made Miss Langley do anything. I don't think I could, not for all the tea and china. She's so wilful." "Yes, you might be right about that." Dinah smiled. "She's always been such an individual. She's so fiery. How in the world did you talk her over?" "I'm not sure myself. I just asked her to reconsider, I suppose. I was as surprised as you are now when she listened to me." "Perhaps you cast a spell on her." Abigail suggested the same thing. "I don't blame her. Hearing Miss Langley apologize was unprecedented. You don't have any witches in the family, do you?" "Not that I know of. Though now that I think of it, my mother does have her own herb garden. She's rather skilled at brewing tinctures. She showed me how to make 1 or 2 remedies, for headaches and the like, you know, but I don't think that counts. I am nothing at all like St. Osbert, with his magical medicines." "No, I don't suppose you are. Oh well." Dinah shook her head. It would have been diverting at least to work with a witch. But never mind. I didn't come here to chatter. Didn't you come here to serve me my breakfast? Well, yes, but I have news too. I thought you might want to know it, given how close you are with Abigail. We're not particularly close, but please do go on. Yes, well, you see... Ahem. Dinah cleared her throat. The joviality slid from her voice and her face, and when next she spoke, she looked very serious. Disconcertingly so. Abigail will no longer be working in Hatton Manor. Not for the foreseeable future, at least. She has been let go. Let go? Letitia was no fool, and she had expected as much. The babe growing in Abigail's stomach had been a ticking clock. Her looming dismissal had not been a question of if, but when. But at the same token, it all seemed very sudden. When did this happen? This morning. Miss Ree went into the attic at sunrise shortly after we'd all woken, and she took Abigail to her one side. She was trying to be considerate, I think. I doubt she wanted the rest of us to hear, but it was obvious. We all knew what was going on. I see. Letitia swallowed. Her throat felt dry as though she had swallowed sand. What happened then? Was Abigail just able to say her goodbyes? She didn't have much time. She was told to pack her bags and be out the front door as fast as possible. Dinah smiled wryly. As you might imagine, that didn't take very long. She didn't have all that much to pack. What's going to happen to her now? Where will she go? Back to her parents, I presume. They live in Beeston in a tiny house with all her siblings. I've heard she has 12 brothers and sisters. Can you credit it? Yes, I had heard. That was one of the things Genevieve had used to needle Abigail during their confrontation several weeks prior. Letitia could still remember how Abigail's face had fallen, twisting with hurt. Abigail had regained her smile soon enough after Genevieve's apology. Perhaps the smile had been less genuine than Letitia had wanted to believe. For all her laughter, Abigail must have known her remaining time at Hatton had been limited. All the apologies in the world would not have changed that. So she's gone? Just like that? Just like that. But how will she get back to Beeston? It's an hour away, all through the marshes. Miss Reed doesn't expect her to walk, does she? Miss Reed wasn't cruel enough to send her away on her own. I believe she arranged for Mr. Lockett to take her back in the carriage. She was given her wages for the month too, in full. She's being treated quite kindly, well, all things considered. And what of her job? Won't she be able to come back? It's doubtful. She'll have to raise the baby, and she'll have to look after her husband too. Her husband? Letitia stared at Dinah, her mouth agape. Abigail has a husband? No, she doesn't. Not yet, at least. That's why her pregnancy is such a scandal. She is engaged to be married, though. The wedding is meant to happen at the end of October before the child is due. That way there'll be slightly less of a furrow. I see. Letitia supposed that was the sensible thing to do. Children born out of wedlock were inherently sinful, but one born from a marriage, even 7 months after the fact, might be saved. It made sense that Abigail would be pushed into a hasty marriage, but one fact still eluded her. Who was her fiancé? Saul Bessie. Bessie? You should know him. He works here in Hatton. He's the undergardener. Ah. Letitia nodded her head. Now she had a title to go with the name, she could finally place an image to this elusive Saul. Saul Bessie was a lanky man, a touch overgrown, like the runner beans he tended to. Letitia thought him to be in his mid-20s or thereabouts, only slightly older than she herself was. Letitia had always thought Saul an uninteresting, insipid sort of character. She could hardly credit that he'd be having an affair with Abigail behind everyone's back, or that he could be the father of her unborn babe. He didn't seem to have the gumption for it. Are you sure Saul Bessie is the father of Abigail's child? I never said that. But you said Saul is going to marry her, yes, but that doesn't prove the babe is his. In fact, I'm all the more convinced that it isn't. Abigail only told us about their engagement a few days ago. It's all very last minute. Then what are you suggesting? One doesn't like to gossip, but well, this is only idle speculation, but it's what all of us scullery maids think. You can dismiss this as so much hot air if you'd like, but... Dinah took a step forth. She brought her lips to Letitia's ear, her voice dropping to a whisper as she said, "We think this was arranged by the master." "By Mr. Langley?" "That's right. He must have known he'd done wrong by Abigail getting her pregnant like that. It's a hard life for an unmarried mother, but of course you can't marry her. That would be out of the question. They are of completely different social statuses." "Then you don't mean—" Tita gawped, her brown eyes wide. "Do you think he arranged this wedding? It would be the smartest thing to do if he wished to provide for poor Abigail, while hiding his own involvement in the matter. The villagers of Beeston will most likely be none the wiser. But those of us who live in Hatton Manor all know the truth. This place is so very out of the way, all we maids have as far as allies go is one another. And of course, we all talk. It is impossible to keep secrets around here." Oh, drama. Letitia's conversation with Dinah left her feeling shaken, and when she ate her breakfast she could barely taste it. She was so distracted, in fact, she could scarcely pay attention during Genevieve's lessons. Try though Letitia might, she couldn't focus upon England's storied history, or the posies of Wordsworth. Neatly bound in 2 volumes, none of the words registered. Though they were powerful, Letitia thought so at least, they lost all their grandeur when she recited them. But Genevieve looked bored and uninterested throughout, which Letitia knew to be her fault. Wordsworth poetry ought to have been compelling, but Letitia could not make it come to life, not in the way it deserved. Oh, if only Abigail had not left Hatton suddenly. Then Letitia would not have felt so out of sorts. If she had had at least a chance to say farewell, perhaps it would not have stung so much, but alas, Letitia knew she was being foolish. What cause would Abigail have to seek her out? A handful of smiles and shared pleasantries hardly constituted a relationship. They hadn't been true friends. Furthermore, it sounded suspiciously like Abigail hadn't the chance to issue forth farewells to anybody. Miss Ree had been determined to frog march both her and her unborn babe out of Hatton Manor as fast as humanely possible. Abigail's pregnant stomach would surely be a source of scandal, no matter who the father was. But was Arthur Langley the real culprit? Letitia did not know. The whole matter was making her head spin. She hadn't imagined when she quit London for the countryside that she would find herself embroiled in so much scandal. Eventually, lunchtime arrived. It was heralded by a knock on the door and 2 slices of savoury meat pie, served by the lanky Annie. Letitia accepted the food from her gratefully, and the pot of tea that went with it. When Letitia poured Genevieve a cup of tea, the distinctive smell of chamomile drifted through the air. This scent, pleasant though it was, made the young governess wince. This tea was the exact same brand, or so it seemed, that Abigail had spilled over the carpet several weeks prior. Despite Abigail's best efforts, the darkened stain still remained in the ruby-red carpet. It had been impossible to shift. The smell of chamomile still permeated the air in the west wing hall, albeit faintly, but Abigail herself was gone. Chat, I think with that I might close things out. I can feel myself lagging. I fumbled over a word. That says it all, really. I fumbled over such an easy word. I can feel myself lagging as well. I can feel the exhaustion starting to hit. I will have the vote. I'm glad you're invested, Wolfie. It's very well written. Don't you agree? Am I saving it again? I literally just did that. Anyway. I'm glad you're invested. If you guys want to know what has happened previously and you're new, and this is your first entry into the story, I must recommend that you check out the YouTube channel for all the previous VODs. Abigail is so precious. We love Abigail. I have this weekend the first episode of blah 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 words of Snobservation with Azel. I am very anxious. Azel is also very anxious. We are going to do our best. We will probably fall on our faces, both of us. Twinsies are falling on our faces. But eventually we'll get it. I feel like we will get down a proper flow and figure out what we're doing. Yes, like and subscribe, do all the things. All the buzzwords, you know what to do. And again, a reminder that on my channel, very wise Wolfie. Don't put your real name in your YouTube channel, by the way. That's not going to be good for anyone. And for all those who are still catching up, there's, as I said previously, in the About section of my Twitch page, there is the link to the new Discord server, which gives all sorts of announcement notifications and live notifications and all sorts of things like that. So you are always up to date on the Priscilla goodness. On all that good Priscilla goss. I've been chatting about art that I enjoy a lot in there recently. Specifically some manga that I've been reading that I've been enjoying greatly. And I've been mostly using it as like a Twitter page where I talk about things I like, and I'm like, well, this is Priscilla's hour. This is the Priscilla hour in here, so I can talk about whatever I want. And everyone has to listen to me. But, you know, in moderation. But yes, thank you all for showing up, guys. I know, like, I had made a thing and saying, stream might be cancelled, I feel shit, and then I come, like, half an hour after starting stream time and be like, actually, we're streaming. And I forgot to make a post on Blue Sky, so we haven't got everyone in here. But what a turnout. Thank you, Ruby, again, immensely for all the donations and the subs, and God, who else did it? Who else? Someone else did things. Who else was it? Jaws gave me some biddies with the big celebration. No, that was done 9 days ago. Oops. 2 hours ago. Ruby. It was a lot of Ruby. Lady did some too. Thank you, everyone. Oh my God. Wicked is doing the celebration thingy. Let's go. Nippy. But thank you again. I'll have the VOD up soon, probably. I have like a pre-made thumbnail already, so it's not going to be a big deal, since this is like a series that I've done previously. It's less of an issue, you know. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Oh my God. I will see you again. Bye bye. Yeah.